Since I'm about to talk, let me point out something about talk. That in our instant case, that is, of me talking, the saving aspect of it is it's all entirely invented. It's all entirely invented for the specific purpose of this. And by being so invented, I can continually see to its correctness, and I can continually see to quality control. If we were under ordinary conditions, see, you would be simply subject to merely the truth. Wherein in this case you are privy to that which is correct. The difference being, if you don't know, is that which is correct is usable, and that which is true is simply debatable. Entirely invented, eh? Yes. If it wasn't, I would have gotten it somewhere. If I got it somewhere, then there would be a conflicting opinion. If I got it somewhere, then sometime or another, what seemed to be true would no longer be true. But as long as something is correct, you can use it, because it's got no real three-dimensional relationship to the truth. On with the important matters. First real paragraph would be the difference between reform and I'm inventing two possibilities to help confuse you, I guess. The difference between reform and real change, or the difference between reform, change, and revolution. So keeping in mind there's always three possibilities to make it easier, since words only have two legs. For tonight, let's try the difference between reform and real change, which would be revolutionary. As I mentioned to you last week, reform is what everybody's about. The kind of desires that I've talked about that's wired into people. The dissatisfaction that everybody feels, and I've described as being the incompletion of an open-end living nervous system running through man. This dissatisfaction can be looked at by inventing two choices and calling it reform and real change, or revolutionary change. Reform is not really change in this two-dimensional description. Reform would be like this. Reform would be the altering or the substitution of mere habits. Now this is what passes for change out in the world. And for God knows how many years now, I keep insisting that ordinary people do not change. And I've tried to sketch it in several ways and tried to get you to look at it from several different directions to see that there was validity. Notwithstanding the fact that everything in your two-dimensional brain and consciousness says that change does happen. My uncle changed, my mother changed, I've changed. All kinds of people change. Drunks change. Those addicted to drugs change. People undergo miraculous spiritual rebirths. But all of this is reform, because it all is either the alteration of a habit, or if you need to expand the possibility of looking at it, the substitution of a habit, such as substituting the habit of drinking for the habit of not drinking. Now with ordinary people, that is not a verbal distinction, that's a real distinction, but it is not normally taken into account. With ordinary people, and you can count yourself among their number, right at the line where consciousness and the development of the nervous system has mechanically halted, that if indeed at one time you had what you consider to be a serious drinking problem, or a drinking problem, or if at one time you smoked and then you quit, At the ordinary level, all of this is not change, it's reform. Because at the ordinary level, you have done what? The nervous system has done what? It has announced, hey, I quit drinking. And it announces now. Overtly, when it has the opportunity, someone says, do you like to have a drink? Oh, no thanks. Used to drink, but do not drink anymore. Hadn't drank since, let's see, 1979. Hadn't had a drink. Not a drink, do you hear me? No thanks, I wouldn't care for one. I quit smoking. No, I gave up, whatever it was. And if nobody's around to hear it, you can simply be driving down the street. You stop at a traffic light and there's a bar, and you look in and think, my, those people in there drinking. I used to, but I do not drink. Your new habit is not drinking, and do not get captured by what might seem to be any question about red circuit health. Is it better to drink or not drink? That's not even what we're talking about. I know that this can sound, if you take it simply at the verbal level, as confusing. So let me try it. This may sound like an instant epigram, but this is a fact as far as words go. If you find any confusion, let me put it to you this way. Anybody that announces that they have changed have not. Seriously. That includes you. If you say, if whatever seems to spur you, that you see somebody lash out verbally at another person, and you say to yourself, that is, that electrical, chemical noise inside your nervous system says to itself something along these lines about, ooh, God, I can feel for you, sir, madam. I used to be that way. I used to have a terrible temper. I used to holler at my sexual mate. I used to holler at children. Seeing you do it now, and oh, in a sense, my little heart goes out to you, but I no longer do that. That is now your habit. And you have not changed. You have undergone some type of mechanical reform, and now your habit is not only not verbally abusing your spouse or a child, your new habit is not only not doing that, but it's announcing that I no longer do that. Have any of you noticed, although it is fairly mechanical, and I'm not trying to defend it, but how it is common to everybody, including yourself at line level consciousness, to have almost no toleration for anybody who's reformed anything. Let me put it to you bluntly. Who in the hell wants to hear, who cares that the person next to you, whether you know him personally or not, wants to give you almost a doctoral dissertation on how, why, when, in the circumstances of how they quit smoking or how they quit drinking? Perhaps you know them well enough that they say, hey, I quit drinking, and for years they were laying in gutters and falling down, hurting themselves. Now they're not. And there, for the grand total of maybe 10, 12 seconds, you feel a kind of positive energy of, oh, that's good. Beyond that, who the hell wants to hear about it? Nobody does. Nobody likes a reformed blank. Nobody. Nobody wants to hear about it. Now, I repeat, this is fairly mechanical, but you should find that interesting. And yet, all ordinary people that talk about change, and I'm saying you have not changed as a matter of being reformed, they must what? They must announce, not just once, the rest of their fucking life. Oh, no thanks. I don't drink. I quit drinking. To a stranger, perhaps. To a waiter in a restaurant in a foreign city. And out of just mechanical courtesy, or because the waiter wants a tip, and having no personal interest, may say, oh, really? That's good for people to cut down many people on drinking. How long have you quit drinking? Since 1928. Who cares? This is news. This is now part, truly, of the new habit. My new habit is I do not drink. Plus, I must announce it. I must confess that I used to drink, and now I must continually announce that I do not drink. If you look in a particular way that is valid, what has passed in your life and in everyone else's for a change, quite truly, is an alteration of a habit such as I used to drink and now I do not drink. That's my new habit. It's an alteration, or I drink less. Or I no longer drink hard liquor, I only drink beer. Or I used to drink and do all sorts of unseemly things, and now I'm a born-again turncoat, Baptist, Jew, Christian, Hindu. So now apparently I have actually not just altered, I have switched habits. But you still are engaged in the habit. The reason I started to make three classifications of reform, change, and revolution was to point out a little area there in the middle. If you can follow this without getting more confused than you normally are, there could be sort of a middle ground that I could have called change, apparent change, and that's more on the level of not just the mechanical reform, but of people having a belief in and a faith in what seems to be an outside force helping them. Miraculous help, spiritual help. That for years I drank and I lost 2 families and wives left me and I lost all my jobs and I couldn't seem to do anything, and then it was like the voice of the gods made me feel so bad and told me, don't drink, and I said, I'm too weak, and they gave me the strength, the faith, the hope, the grace, whatever the spiritual terms are. And it seems to be almost a miraculous occurrence, and it is due, at least in part, if not in large part, in part to some kind of external help. That's the reason I almost called it 3. Put that in parentheses and we'll skip on and still consider I'm talking about just 2 things, of reform and revolutionary change, or reform and real change. Now, real change, the revolutionary change, truly, in the 4-dimensional manner, transcends old habits and any habit. And you need to see that. This sort of thing, whatever experience you can now personally validate, that you can personally feel in yourself that has happened, without any question you can see once I point out that it is not habit. It didn't suddenly in some way come upon you in the kind of states that you have experienced suddenly became habit. It is not something that you have to worry about that, ooh, I am now getting too conscious for my own good. I should cut back. In the way in which I tried to quit drinking at first, and I just kind of cut down. Maybe that's why I should do with this, because I am probably getting too conscious for my own good. There may be danger. Revolutionary change, not just mechanical reform, transcends not only old habit, but all habit, even the aspect of habit. It does not become habitual in your lifetime. It cannot. It is foreign to the kind of mechanical progression, the kind of mechanical evolution that would have, it could have taken place in anybody's single lifetime. That is why it takes, no matter how I try to play around with the words, or you may try to play around with it, it takes some kind of continual effort. Even if you only can make Pogita effort for this week, and then maybe no effort for 3 weeks, and then maybe Pogita squared for 3 days, and then for 3 months, it seems like you did nothing. It still requires some kind of specific effort. Also in part what I mean by transcending habit is that kind of revolutionary change is not even tied to the idea of change. It's not the same way the ordinary people and you at the ordinary level sit down, apparently, at some time and think, I have got to change. I have got to quit drinking. Here I am drunk again. Here I am in jail again. Here I am wrecked a car again. I've got to stop beating up on my wife or husband. Here I am back in the police custody, whatever it is. You do not sit down with the same kind of feeling. It's not even the same universe. And try and neuralize, try and think about, try and feel, try and recall anything about this kind of activity and what you've done in the past and what seemed to have had some personal significance to you. There's no way that you sit down and can compare what you try to do, however you think about it, to try and just bring back some of the passionate memory or experience regarding this. There's no way that you can sit down and think about that in the same way that you would think about at the normal level of the nervous system of some kind of change. That's why oftentimes I throw in comments about that this is a useless kind of change, where it's the attempt to do something that could prove to be ultimately useless, because at the ordinary level the nervous system sees no need for it. It makes no sense. Why have you quit doing so-and-so when you won't tell me why you have? Says the old internal noise. Why won't you even admit that you have stopped doing so-and-so? Because you haven't done it now in 2 years. Why won't you admit it? You've quit. Admit it, damn it. You have quit, haven't you? And what's even worse, you quit. There's no doubt about it. But why the hell won't you say so? What is this? Some kind of damn game? Or are you trying to drive me nuts? Remember, I'm speaking for the nervous system. At the mechanical level, at its best. It's what in the hell is going on up there? You've quit doing so-and-so, and since you won't say this for your health, since you won't say it's for any moralistic reason, it's obviously not. Because if it was, you'd say so. Why did you stop? It gets to be a multi-pronged state of confusion. Not only will you people up there, whoever's doing this, above me, not only will you not admit, you won't just come out and say that, yeah, I quit doing so-and-so. Just tell me. Just admit it. You won't even do that. But by not doing it is also very distinctly to the nervous system. The message is I hadn't really quit. It is unsettling. It is unnatural, and in a sense it is useless. But I'm going to, somewhere toward the end of this evening, go a little more specifically into this kind of internal talk. It is set up on an ordinary level that no one, you should be able to feel it. By some of your chuckles and other things, some of you did hear distinctly a piece of what I was talking about. It is very distinctly as though the old voice of you, the old voice that would be mechanical monarch, says, what are you doing? Why do you now do things you didn't used to, or why do you not now do things that you used to do, and you won't talk about it? I mean, not only have you not told your best friend or anybody else here, or even your mother, your father, you won't tell me. But who do you think you're fooling? It was something that you did for 30 years, and you suddenly stopped, and you haven't done it in 2 years, and you haven't even mentioned it to anybody, because I've been here, I've been listening. At least tell me. Tell me, have you stopped doing it? What it wants to know is our new habit not doing it. That is not reform. That goes off at a right angle. That is a kind of revolution. There's a kind of revolution that, to the populace, that is your old voices, seems to be, I don't know any way to verbally overstate it, like just stringing out a arm's length worth of adjectives, but it seems to the populace to be an absolute useless revolution. What in the hell are you revolting against? What's the rebellion against? You won't even tell us. Now, I've seen things that you are doing differently. Just because you won't tell me, I'm not an idiot. I don't know why you won't tell me, why you won't just say so. But there are things that you are now doing differently. But what I want to know is, well, of course, I want to know why you won't tell me. But on top of that, it's why the hell you're doing it. If it had any significance, you would say something about it. You'd at least tell me of, yes, I quit doing that. I came to my senses. Or, yes, we made this change. That's what the revolution was about, to improve ourselves. How can I tell if we're improving ourselves? You won't admit it. You won't even tell that you've actually done it. It seems to be almost a useless revolution, which, as I have tried to hint to you over the last few months, is the only kind of real revolution. It's got to appear useless. Everything else is just some old sorehead. And the populace, the crowd's always full of that. Your crowd's full of that. but it's not revolution. I guess someday I'm going to have to come up with a synonym for transcend, since that's been used so much among regular, sane would-be mystics. But by now some of you, or most of you, should have some idea I'm trying to convey that it is beyond the grip. It is beyond the three-dimensional world of definitions even. Reform is gravity-bound. It is tied to the habitual horizontal world. And the real revolution, that is a kind of revolutionary change, not reform. Change is not so tied. It is free. Then the nervous system wants to say, all right, free, but free to do the fucking what? If it's free, why don't you tell me what you're doing and I'll join in and help you? You can believe that, all right. If you believe that, you believe that your school principal and your truant officer was your best friend. You believe that you're God's forefather, or your forefather's God, whichever the case may be, would be your best friend if you would be his best friend, if you would reform. In a sense, again, if you began to be able to see things not tied to the gravity, to the weight of the horizontal world, that is the three-dimensional world, you can see that the real revolutionist has no friend. He doesn't believe in anything, but, see, here's the tricky part. He doesn't not believe in anything. Whereas reformed people and unreformed people, that is, all regular folks, either believe in something or don't believe in something, which is the same habit. But the real revolutionist transcends that, not through some theory, not through the grace of some spiritual force. It is by developing in his lifetime a part of his nervous system that is meaningless right now. It's dragging in something from the twilight zone and bringing it here, and it's here, and it knows exactly what's going on. And it's kind of like bringing in an actor in the third act that doesn't have any lines until the fourth act. And he comes on, he knows what's going on, etc., but he's got no lines. And the people down the stage, and here's a stranger, and they try to feed him lines, they try to say something. He's like he's useless. Who needs him? You got no part now. Maybe he stays out of the way. But the people on stage, what should we say? Irritated, disturbed, concerned? What the hell is he doing here? Speak up. And you got no lines. What are you doing here? It is not tied to the world as it is. That sounds pretty spooky and metaphysical. If anybody's noticed, I'm having an inclination the last few months, in case you didn't notice, to get less and less non-specific, believe it or not. I don't know why I bothered to tell you that, since it doesn't sound to be true, but it's correct. At least I passed over that too quickly. My instant epigram. You could put that down as another rule to carry to the bank with you. That in the 3D world, you can take it as a rule if you need something to help clear your eyesight. That anyone who says they've changed haven't. And that includes, my dear, you. If the internal voice, and you take it as being your serious voice, that it reaches the old good screen of consciousness. I'm going to have to update that in some way. Well, now all of you should have some notion of what I mean. It's the kind of thing, the screen of consciousness I used to refer to. It's a good old thing that there you are standing on a corner, and my old proverbial pickup truck goes by and somebody leans out the window, throws a beer can at your feet and hollers, "Fuck you, Charlie!" And your nervous system makes these internal immediate noises, and they say, But it's not in full voice to you, because in a sense you have not said it, but the nervous system itself has already formed the words. It's like putting the needle right in the beginning of the groove of a record. And very common the way they press records. Put your ear down, and the cartridge right there itself mechanically will pick up maybe a half a bar, a whole bar of the first line coming up of the music before the groove actually plays. It's like a pre-echo. It's that same kind of thing, that there you stand, it just happens in a flash, a 3D flash. Beer can, when I holler, fuck you, your nervous system, it's like it starts down here and it says fuck you, and you hear it, you know what your nervous system wants to say, and you do not say it. That is the difference. Ordinary people feel that they have got to reform that. They've got to suffer over it. Religious people suffer over it. That I constantly hate my brother, and I can't seem to change. I've prayed, I fast, I give to the church, and I still hate my brother. Everybody hates their fucking brother. Everybody's nervous system on this planet, in a sense, hates their brother. Everyone is well read enough to know that social critics, would-be philosophers, forever have been making some apparent observation of saying this or that in human culture and human society, this or that aspect seems to be based on violence. Shucks. What teeny-weeny little view. Because at least at the red circuit level, across the board, at everyone's ankles and knees and hips, it could truly be said, not an accusation, but it could truly be said in a clinical way, at that level, which is a level we all got to stand in the beginning. And it's always a support as long as you are physically alive on this level. At the red circuit level, everything is based upon what 3D consciousness calls violence. There's no sense trying to single anything out. And so at one level, from one view, it is correct to say everybody hates their brother. Everybody is prejudiced. I don't care whether they're black, white, green, Jew, Christian, Muslim, whoever your forefathers, whoever your nervous system genetically seems to have any mechanical prejudice that wants to talk about them. But hears somebody else attack them and it joins in. If you were Jewish and your nervous system seems to mechanically respond negatively to the idea, to the word, to the picture of a Muslim, if we suddenly made you non-Jewish and turned you into a Baptist, I hope that you don't think that all be over. Now, some of you thought that, well, that's some problem I've got to wrestle with, is due to my background and my upbringing, whether I can sympathize with it or not. Being Jewish, I dislike Muslims. And I feel like that's a real problem. And to people in all religions, you surely remember this, to people in all would-be religions, that is a problem. But you do know, you people by now, if I snap my fingers and you quit being Jewish and you became Baptist, you don't think your problems will be over, do you? Nobody's problems are over at that level. It's all that matters is swapping one problem for another or altering a problem. You would not be changed. You would just have swapped your nervous system as it is now from having a mechanical negative reaction towards some other religious group. Now I'd have a new group. That's the only difference. The difference between understanding what the nervous system is about and what passes for one's individual consciousness here is not a matter of suffering over, not a matter of foolishly, unprofitably trying to wrestle with your nervous system which cannot be changed. It's finding out the noises my nervous system makes of hollering back to this person, fuck you, or hollering at somebody that's a Muslim of, oh, you dirty Arab. As I can stop it, it's as though, literally, and this is a fair description, I can come up with others, but this is a fair description, is the person goes by and hollers, fuck you, and it starts right down here at the base of the spine, as I used to draw you that diagram. It runs up the nervous system, and you can hear it before it starts. Everybody can, if it's pointed out to them, but they don't see any significance, and they merge with it. They take that as their only voice because it is their only voice. But in you, it's as though it starts down here, and it's moving. Sometimes I say almost at the speed of light. It's for damn sure moving at the speed of sound, isn't it? And it says, fuck you too. And it rushes up, and it gets right up here at the level of consciousness where, as it were, you say it to yourself. You say it out loud. Even if you don't say it out loud, that is, you say it inside out loud. You agree with it. That voice becomes you. And it gets up to this level, up to eye level, E-Y-E, and the letter I. And it says, fuck you. And it says, oh, you go, Even if you do not overtly turn to the truck and holler, fuck you too. If it just goes by and they throw the can and holler, fuck you, and you turn around as they're driving off and it runs up your nervous system, gets up to here and it says, fuck you too, and it says, oh, you go, couldn't agree with you more, Ollie. Fuck you too. Now you have, quote, said it. You did. And if you're ordinary and you were trying to improve yourself, reform yourself, be a good Muslim, Jew, Christian, you would then, if you thought about it, feel what? Guilty. There I go again doing it. Well, you can feel that's a good hobby to feel guilty, because an ordinary person can say, there I go doing it again. And we don't have to tell them this, but there they go doing it again from now on. It's not going to change. You have got to find out, and all of you, I'll go ahead and say this, I'll make a good blanket statement, all of you have had enough experience to have a personal taste of what I'm talking about. It's not just stopping. Of course, this description doesn't cover it all. It's a little better than this, if we want to use the word better. But it is not a matter of stopping this mechanical noise any more than stopping your stomach from rumbling when you hadn't eaten on meeting night, or when you've had too much coffee and your stomach grumbles. Who takes that personally? Unless, of course, you're in a very touchy social situation, which I guess some of you might be, but don't let me know. But who takes that personally? It is noise. People doing this throughout history, no matter what they were called after the fact, no matter how historically they are described, the basis of it, the beginning of it, the beginning basis of it, then, is to find out that the noise, things that just happen internally with me as I am up until this point, bear as much relationship to me as sap does to a tree. It'd be to accuse a tree of being sappy, to accuse a skunk of smelling bad, or accuse a bobcat of having a pretty short and irritable temper, I might add. It's to accuse a rock of being dirty. Now, it is necessary that humans take it personally. It is necessary that humans, the nervous system called human, take the noise internally as being themselves. The more conscious you are mechanically, the more sophisticated you are, the higher up you are in life's nervous system as a human, the more you do take it personally. What I think, I'm responsible for. What I feel, I'm responsible for. That's going down a little bit. What I do, I'm responsible for. We're getting closer down to a red level. But the higher up you get, it seems as though that which I say, that which I think, I'm responsible for. Only those who understand that I'm not responsible for this thus far can ever be responsible. As long as you think you're responsible, you're not. It's a stepchild or stepsister of those who say that they've changed, haven't. And that includes you. If you tell yourself, boy, I've changed with this, you hadn't changed. Don't want to give you the blues, but literally. And some of you should be able to hear it if you have slipped up enough to tell yourself that, yes, I've stopped doing so, or I have done so and so. I have changed. You should be able to hear this, as sad as it may be, just for the time being. If you ever said that, you hadn't changed. Now, you may be making progress, blah, blah, blah. But if you say, yes, I have overcome this solitary vice, well, we won't go into that. I had this one bad habit, at least, I really worked on, and I've changed. If you ever even told yourself, don't try and pat yourself on the nervous system by saying, well, I hadn't told many people, or maybe nobody. If you told yourself, if you sit and watch a TV show and somebody says, yes, Bring us a couple of other martinis here. And the noise inside of you says something about just picturing the way you used to be and doing that. But now I wouldn't do that. I don't drink. I wouldn't drink. I've changed. You hadn't changed. Not if you said that. Not if you said that and you heard you say that and went, yes. That you nodded, couldn't agree with you more. You hadn't changed and you should be able to hear it. You may be reformed, but you're no better than what is known in the ordinary world as an alcoholic. And all of you know that it's now reached a level out in life's body that those called alcoholics are now judged to be sick, etc., etc. But they continually point out, with these addictive type personalities they're called now, that a real alcoholic is never cured. That you're always an alcoholic. That is, you can't take a drink. Because if you're an alcoholic and you take a drink, you're right back into it. So even there you should see, that's not change. I am now a non-drinker. I admit that I was an alcoholic, but now I don't drink. That's your new hobby. That is not change. So if you have told yourself, just you, if nobody else, if you have told yourself in response to any kind of apparent external stimuli, that yes, I'm glad I don't do that, you haven't changed. You should be able to feel, and I don't mean just alcohol, but you should be able to feel in that area, since I pointed out, that you're the same thing as an alcoholic. You may have quit behaving in that way for the time being, whatever it was. Because you may think, I no longer get mad at the opposite sex. I have changed. In that sense, you're an alcoholic regarding sexual anger. You haven't changed. You may have reformed your behavior. But you do understand, I can't go back and take a drink. You hadn't changed. Revolutionary change just goes beyond all that. It's not even the same direction. It's not doing better. It's not doing worse. It's not taking one habit and turning it up on the other side. If your habit was drinking, if your habit was anger, whatever it was, change is not the opposite. Change, revolutionary change can't be described, literally. All right, if I tell you it can be described, I want you to understand it can't be described because you wouldn't describe it. Then your nervous system says, have you changed? And you don't answer. Come on, admit it, you changed. Admit it, you don't any longer do that. You know, it's not a matter that you either any longer do it or not do it. But I sure as hell ain't going to talk about it because I don't do interviews. Not with the likes of you. And of course, I hate to tell you, but you're going to have to live a long, long time on this level to find anybody. I'm being funny now, I don't even mean this seriously. To find anybody that you'd ever confess to. It's always a matter of, if I'm going to confess, it's not going to be the likes of you. Watch it. If I'm going to confess, it's not going to be to the likes of you. If I wanted to associate and talk to low class, dumbass, just trash, I don't have to go anywhere. I stay home and talk to myself. If I want to tell lies, if I want to hear lies, if I want to hear dreams, I don't have to turn on a soap opera. I don't have to go see a B-grade Western if they still made them. I don't have to go out and seek out dolts, fools, idiots. All I got to do is sit home. The radio's on, just turn it up a little bit. Just, there it is. Don't need to go to the library and check out books of sardonic, if not sarcastic wit, poking fun at human society and human nature. You don't need any of that. Not if you're well read at all. I just sit home. I can take all my clothes or sit in my box of shorts and get in the closet. And it's all right there. I'm going to circle around some of the wagons. Back to some capital P political talk regarding the capital S state, capital P people, the RR, the real revolutionist, the RP, the ruling powers. An update I mentioned in the last couple of weeks. The fact that the ruling powers, that which seems to be the ruling power, seems to be the government, the controlling factor at the time in the state. In the state. The ruling power must control speech or it controls nothing. It can control the movements of the people. That is, apparently the ruling powers might have stopped you from hitting every woman that you go to bed with. The ruling powers may have stopped you from every time you stop in at a restaurant to have a meal of saying, bring me 4 margaritas before I start. They may have stopped that, but the ruling powers truly have no power. They got no control. They got no lasting control with civilized people. And all of you are civilized. Your populace is civilized if you are illiterate. If you speak a language, you are civilized enough to fit into this. Then the ruling powers, the would-be monarch, knows this. Life has put it in us. It's just never been explained up until the fortuitous event of me showing up here, wherever this is. That the ruling powers understand that if you do not control speech, you don't have control. Another aspect to that, whatever seems to be the official language of the ruling powers, and they all have one, the official language of the ruling powers will become the official language of the people. Who the hell wants to hear about politics? I ain't talking politics. It does happen. That's a fact. That's why it's correct. But the ruling power is in you. The nervous system itself, up to the level just prior to doing anything in this regard, of doing anything useless and extraordinary, up until this point, internally, in your state, in the state of you being a Bob, a Robert, a Cindy, a Sue, in your state, the ruling powers established control over speech. They start out establishing control over behavior. Of do not doo-doo in your pants. Do not stick a pencil in your little sister's eye. Do not scream every time we serve your little sister ice cream before you. It built up. It seemed to reform behavior at your little red circuit level. And that seemed to affect the way you feel at the blue circuit level. But the real control, or looked at another way, when it gets to the point that you either got control or you don't have control, it gets to speech. Is now you're apparently adult. You're apparently sophisticated. You apparently have gone from a primitive state of chaos to a sophisticated state of a monarchy. And you can now control your tongue. Not only can you control your behavior, if somebody passes you in a truck and throws a beer can and says, fuck you, you can refrain from seeing a rock there and pick it up. Something just an instant judgment seems to be that don't do that. We could analyze a little more that you may look around and think somebody will see me, the cops will see me, I could do them more damage than they did me. Apparently you are sophisticated now enough that you can affect behavior that you do not pick up, reach down right quick and pick up a beer can or a rock and throw it back at them. But now, the proof that you are now in control, that you're ruling powers, it may be to the point that apparently you can refrain as they drive off from turning around and hollering, fuck you too! How crude. But you can apparently look off. And maybe somebody else saw the whole affair and looked at you. You can even turn around and look like Sir Francis Magnanimous. And look at the other person and go, what are you going to do? What's a sophisticated, reserved, in-control person like myself to do in this crude, dusty, unkept world? The ruling powers know that if you do not control speech, you do not have ultimate control in a civilized world, in a civilized state, and all of you are in a civilized state, and vice versa. All of you have an official language. And it's not English, it's not Jewish, it's not Christian, although that has an effect, but it is not a cultural effect. It is not a environmental effect. It is a genetic effect. And certain genetic traits are misnamed, from a 4D view at least. And they're called such things as being black, being white, being Chinese, being Jewish, being Arabic, etc. It has an effect, but I want to try and point your attention a little more specifically. Your official language is the Hubert language, the Marianne language, the Sue Bell, the Bobby Joe. That is your official language. That seemed to be the language, that's what I meant by the official language, of the ruling powers as you began to go slowly and then quicker, more quickly, into a state of apparent monarchy, that you seem to have developed some stable internal I, some personality. Your official language, the language of all the people in you, the people of your state, capital P, people, capital S, state, their official language now is the Myron language, the Mary, the Fred. That's the language. Looked at from another view, I want you to understand, not now from the ruling powers view, from the people's view. As long as the people will speak the official language of the state, they're had. They believe in it. They accept it as the language. They accept it as being the statement of things as they are. And as long as somebody else is controlling the language, they're controlling you. Of course, in this sense, it seems as though you're controlling yourself. Ha, ha. If you believe that, take a walk. If you believe that still, how did you ever get in here? But you are captive. As long as somebody else is controlling your language, as long as you have adopted somebody else's language, you've been had. You are captured. Even if you try to verbally rebel, you've got to use their language. That's why the state will put up with a certain kind of rebellion, because it's not going anywhere. You're having to use their ammunition. You're having to apparently reform that which is already made up of materials that they supplied. It's like a harmless hobby. The ordinary people that holler about revolution inside of your state are really hollering about reform. And the ruling powers say, that's fine. Probably some validity in what you say, we'll take it under advisement. And as you should know, monarchies do not take crap under advisement. You might get some kind of hearing. The king, the monarch, might let you in, along with everybody else once a week, and you may come up and say, there are things going on I don't like. And the king may go, and you get through and say, well, I feel much better, and I appreciate you hearing me out. Thanks a lot. And the king's going like this. And you find out later, the man may be asleep, and there's one of his prime ministers are down behind him, and they got him by the back of the neck, and all day long, yeah. Because the monarch doesn't take things under advisement. If he did, then reform could be changed. Then nobody would need this kind of activity. You'd think, well, I think I'll change. And you would go forth and change. But now, I don't have to beat you with a dead horse, do I? Change like that's not possible. You can say, I have tried to change, I've tried to do this and that all my life. I prayed, I fasted, I chanted, I joined numerous weird groups before I found you here. And I tried to change. Just little things. I just tried to bring my temper under control. And I stayed 5 years with Swami so-and-so or some reborn Hindu group here in America that said if you chant, if you only eat this kind of refried rice, it will lower the temperature of your kind of serpentine metaphysical energies or whatever they talk about, and it will calm you down. I tried it. I almost starved myself to death. I did every fucking thing they said, and that didn't change. As long as you're using the language of the emperor, You can talk rebellion all you want to. You can talk change all you want to, but it's not going to happen. Whether the emperor says, I'm all for it. Let's do change. You're right, the people do have some grievances. By God, let's all change for the good. You're an idiot. The king is not going to change. If there's any nature of ruling powers, it is conservatism. If there's any way to describe ruling powers, it is that they are the eternal foe of change. Even if they say, fine, you're using their currency, you're using their language. Once you get a glimpse of this, you'll see how silly it is to talk about change. It's not that people are idiots. It's not that I'm right and life's wrong, although that's true. That's not the basis of it. And then you see all your life, the whole idea that I was going to change, even if I had done what I thought I was trying to do, I wouldn't have changed. I would have taken off a hair shirt and put on one made out of barbed wire. I can't change because I wasn't even talking about anything. I was not talking about anything that I owned. I was not talking about anything that I used. I was not using any materials, that is, words that were mine. You can never, never confess sins. Never confess your sins. And don't take this in some very limited religious sense, because you don't have to be a Baptist. Whatever your background was, your nervous system, everybody, it's even people that apparently are non-believers of any religion, to say the very least, are inclined to confess. But let me point out even more specifically, since most people still vibrate their nervous system in some way to a mention of a religion. Notice that all religions require, in one way or another, a verbal admission of your past transgressions to the teaching of their Jehovah, God, Allah. It's required. It's not some form of foolishness, it's necessary. Because if you confess, let's just take it at the most common level, like the Catholic Church, or most Protestant churches, most fundamental Protestant churches, but the Catholic Church, you actually go to a representative of God, and you confess, and you say, last week I did such and such. Things that are sins, things that if you were a good Catholic, you have been told, and to some degree, you have accepted as being true, that God said, do not do this. And I did it. And I verbally admit it. I confess it. Or on a broader scheme, is not just a kind of periodic, personal, low-level confession of what I did wrong this week, but perhaps to align yourself publicly and otherwise with this organization, with this religion, is in some way you admit, up until now I have been nothing but a transgressor. I have been cut off from cosmic powers. I have indeed been a sinner. I admit it to you people. I admit it to the congregation. I admit it to the rabbi, the priest, the minister. I'm here to tell you that I have been a low-down, low-class son of a bitch. I'm sorry, folks. I've been a sinner, and I'm here to admit it, but now I'm going to join up and change. It's necessary throughout the world that you confess. As I said, whether it's on a weekly basis or just an initial confession, to really prove, to show that I am indeed a good blank, or I want to be. As I confess, up until now I have been a, whatever term they use, but amounts to a sinner. I have not acted, felt, thought, behaved correctly. And I confess that that's a fact. You have got to, at the ordinary level, confess it. You've got to say it to hold yourself responsible. You've got to say, I have been a sinner. I have hated my fellow man. I have eaten pork. I have consumed alcohol. I have had sexual relationships outside my immediate family, as they say in Alabama, other places, outside the marriage bed. I can cheap shot it as well as anybody. You have to confess verbally, because then this is not some kind of trick. This is not some kind of psychological trick. This is a molecular reality. Sound waves running in a kind of 3D closed loop. You have got to confess that I have been a sinner. I have hated my fellow man, for instance. But I have just in general been a sinner. Up until today, I have been a non-Christian. Now I'm going to confess and join up and sign my name and stand here before the priest, the congregation, you fine people, and I confess I have been a sinner. You've got to say that to properly, as everyone should, take responsibility that I have an I. I am the I standing here, I am the I talking, and to take full responsibility that it was I. Yes, I, nobody else. It was I who have confessed I have been a sinner. You've got to say that to properly, as everyone should, take responsibility that I have an I. I am the I standing here, I am the I talking, and to take full responsibility that it was I. Yes, I, nobody else. It was I who have done these sinful things in the past. It is I standing here now confessing it. It is I that has seen the light. It is I that the convicting spirit of the cosmic forces, or of Allah, of God, of Jehovah, has touched me and made me, brought me to this place to confess my sins and to tell you I'm going to do better. Contrarily, as you should suspect, the real revolutionist will never confess. The real revolutionist knows that it was not some individual I that did anything up until now, much less anything sinful, much less anything wrong. It did what it did. And it might as well have been sap. I might as well have been a white pine, and it had been sap running out of me. I might as well have been a bobcat, and up until now it hadn't been my temper. What's native for a bobcat? I mean, any bobcat you know, what's his redeeming feature? He has a temper about that short. Bobcats just do not put up with crap from anybody except the bigger bobcat crowds. Up until now, my nervous system, up until now, this thing that everybody else calls I, might as well have been a skunk. How am I going to hold it personal? How am I going to say I personally decided somewhere down the line that I'm going to stink? Or, given its best shot, somewhere along the line I was offered the opportunity to become a smelly little creature, and I decided, oh, why not? Or I was offered the chance, and I thought, no, I don't want to, and I was so weak of character that it just overcame me, and I've been stinking ever since, but now I confess it. The real revolutionist knows that there has been no individual I. My equation of I plus not I is specious. It is a 3D mirage. It's real to everybody else at the 3D level, but he has nothing, or she does, to confess. It wasn't me that said those things. It wasn't me that did those things. This, of course, my description of it is specious and spurious, because that is not what you do. You don't even confess to yourself. You can't even state this to yourself. There is no way to put it into words. That's why I'm making it up and inventing it and coming as close as I can. You cannot confess sins of any nature. There is nothing to confess. By confessing, you're not helping yourself in the revolution. You're not helping yourself in any four-dimensional manner. What you're doing, whether you know it or not, is you're helping yourself be more of a blank. Christian, Jew, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever you happen to have been. Whatever your nervous system was molecular structured to have been. What you may have been in the past, what your family molecular patterns were, all you're doing is setting yourself up to someday fall back, especially at death's bed, to, quick, call a rabbi, I just remembered I am Jewish after all. Call a priest. There is nothing to confess once you understand that I have not been an I. It's just obvious, and in the debate, it hadn't been me. And if it was me, I have never done anything sinful. I have never done anything wrong. One does not beget the other, and they're not really brothers. They're a mirror reflection of each other. There is no I, and therefore there is no I that could have done wrong. And if it could have done anything, it wouldn't have been wrong. It seems to be a biologically accepted fact, which I'm not going to argue with, that the majority of information that humans receive comes from sight. I'm not questioning that. That most of the information that consciousness and people have seems to be derived, the majority of it, from sight as opposed to the other senses. I assume we'd all agree that would seem to have some validity, that if you had to give up a sense, I assume that's the one that most people would dread to give up. But there is something that is not recognized circling still around the wagons while attempting not to disturb and frighten the burros. And even Gabby Hayes, if he's back there cooking. And that is, even though this may be true, it is what man's nervous system says to itself that is most influential. It is not, going back to the sight, it's not what people see. It's what people tell themselves that they saw. The most influential, let me repeat it again. Most of you thought it either sounded too simple or you didn't hear it. The most influential apparent input that you can have to yourself is not what you see. It's what you tell yourself. Everybody on this planet, what you tell yourself that you saw, what you tell yourself that you thought, what you tell yourself that you just did, what you tell yourself that you just heard, that is the most influential thing that happens. Among other things, you can begin to get a whole new four-dimensional quick view of the matter of so-called opinions, diverse beliefs, and etc. of a group of people stand there and something seems to happen. And a group of people, apparently all the different people saw something slightly different. And some people think, well, I saw it correctly and somebody else didn't. Then it gives rise to the good old sayings that appearances are deceiving, which that is flawed from the outset. Because appearances, if you understand it in a four-dimensional manner, appearances are not a characteristic of something seen. Appearances are a characteristic of sight. And thus everybody at the ordinary level is going to see, if you say that something out here happened. A man was walking down the street and hollered, "Ooh, I'm going to die," and he fell over and died. And then this group of people were questioned later, and all of them had a slightly different version of what the man said, whether he said that before he fell or he said after he was falling, and etc. That if you looked at the occurrence, which is not true, if you looked at it as something separate, an objective occurrence, everybody has to see it differently, because it's not what people saw, it's not what people think they experienced. It's what they tell themselves that they experience. It's their nervous system talking and them saying, "That's me talking," and listening and going, "Yes, yes, yes." Right here, I've talked about this from how many different directions for how many months and months and months. It's why the real revolutionist doesn't talk to himself. He doesn't do interviews. He doesn't confess. He doesn't ever tell himself what he's doing. Because if he does, no matter what he tells himself, he's immediately misled himself. But that's the way the nervous system, that's the way regular folks, sane people, know who they are and what they're doing, as they tell themselves, "I just felt so-and-so." And they say it, and internally they go, "Yes, I did. I just saw so-and-so." And of course it helps. Not only to tell yourself, but if you can find somebody and say, "Hey, did you see what I just saw?" "What?" And you tell somebody. Or you rush home and say, "Hey, honey, guess what I saw? Guess what I heard?" You got to tell somebody. If we were talking psychologically, if there was such a thing, and we're not, and there's not, you can say, well, it helps relieve the tension of life. It helps shore up your tenuous hold on sanity. by talking to other people, having some kind of combined hold on this great idée fixe that seems to be reality out there, not I. Need to tell people. Perhaps I can get some kind of feedback if I am, as I've feared for so many years, if my boat's beginning to drift a little farther from the shore than I need to. If I talk to other people, at least the kind of positive feedback, they'll let me know, and perhaps I need to go seek professional help or get another prescription for Valium or something. It is a fact. It is a molecular, a chemical fact that ordinary people, that is the nervous system of ordinary people, has got to talk about and tell itself what it knows. Only then does it really exist. You can see all you want to. You can hear all you want to. You can read all you want to. But you've got to tell yourself what it was that you saw, heard, and read. Then it becomes a fact, or then it becomes true. You can debate whether it's a fact, whether I imagined it. It then becomes part of your three-dimensional reality. You have confessed your sin. You have done an interview. You've told yourself what you're doing. You cannot stage a revolution. You cannot live outside the real, established, stable, sane outskirts of the city where the populace lives. You cannot live out there in the bushes, having nothing, believing in nothing, and talk to yourself. You cannot look through the bushes and say, well, the people, they're doing so and so, they're mobilizing, they may be coming to get me and drag me back in. You cannot say such as that. Because sure as hell, as soon as you say it, it's got some validity. Whether they ever do it or not, now you got to worry about it. Now you got to plan for that. Now you got to think about it. It is not a part of your world. A real revolutionist hardly sees anything. That which he sees, he doesn't tell himself. Because if he tells himself, then he's got to go back sometime and untell himself. He's got to change his mind. He's got to believe, well, I have gained new information. I have got to rethink my position. The kind of revolutionary mind where you're almost low-minded, you don't have to rethink anything. You don't have to change your mind. You got no mind. You don't have to alter your opinion. You got no opinion. You don't have to decide, should I change my beliefs? No need to change them. I got none. Do I have to rethink my position? Nope, don't have one. Of course, I remind you again, the real revolutionist not only does not have a position, he does not have I don't have a position either. Because you'd have to talk to yourself to do that. Somewhere in here you might like to throw in while you're hanging back there, maybe out behind the wagon over there where Gabby was. Some of you had to go out and take a leak. Just while you're there for a second, how about even neuralizing, definition number what, 3? If you can get a grip on this somewhere, that you can also see what I've been talking about as neuralizing, is you would have the ability, we're carrying it a little somewhere else, with you personally, you could discuss things without talking about them. You could investigate things. You could debate. We're talking about you now. You could discuss them, ponder them, probe them, do all that stuff that ordinary people say they do. But you could do it without talking about it. Try and hear this good, since I'm in this area. Something I've wanted to point out for a long time. And it has to do with the reality behind what I was calling operational directives even. And I may leave it to you to try and find a more direct connection than I give initially. But it's like another approach to what I mean by operational directives, of forcing yourself, just without anything, without any discussion, without any rationale, without any proof, without any disproof, without waiting for some kind of glorious moment wherein, yes, I fully understand this now, and I can operate on this basis. It's like another approach, and I'm in the same neighborhood with this. It's this kind of thing. You're not a revolutionist. You're not doing this. You're an idiot to think you're anything special. If you're not able to specifically, and now pick any religion you want to, pick out the religion that you were raised in, pick out the religion of your parents. If you can't take the heart of that religion, all of you know what it is now, be you Christian, Jew, or Muslim, whoever we've got listening to this, Hindu, Buddhist. Right now, you've got some clear, your nervous system has some clear conception, if I say what it would be to be an exemplary Jew, a sterling Christian, etc. You know what that would be. When I'm not arguing, you know what that is. How can you call yourself, now of course I'm telling you, you cannot, anything special if you cannot feel, think, and do everything that a first-class Jew or Christian or Buddhist could do without that mechanical background of being a Christian, Jew, or Buddhist to lean on. That you can do it, that you can be at least as good as, and you got to be a little bit better than what would be to you. And I just accept your own nervous system. We're not going to debate this as nothing. Just whatever, if you were Jewish, whatever your nervous system says, if I said, what would be the living epitome of Moses reincarnated, or a contemporary, what would be a real Jew, whatever comes to you, you have got to be able to do that. If I say, what would be if you grew up in a kind of fundamentalist or a good Protestant Western religion, a Christian religion, and I said, what would it be for you to be a true Christian? You grew up in the kind of church that your molecules has this thing about, as they call it here, being reborn, of really some kind of drastic change, and that Christianity is indeed, as the theory is based upon love. The feeling that my religion, that my molecules tell me that my religion should have been, that if I could undergo that kind of experience, and in some way take on a Christ consciousness, that I would suddenly, if I could do it correctly, if I knew the trick, if I was indeed a real Christian, I would suddenly have nothing but good feelings, but love for my neighbor, even people who hated me, people of other religions, people who said that they hated the very ground that Christians walked on. Somewhere there'd be some kind of little spark in my heart that would just smile, and I would love them. They could kick me, they could spit on me like they did Jesus, and it wouldn't bother me. Out in the 3D world, you got to understand there's validity to that, to being a good Jew. But there is a difference in the 3D world of being a good Jew and being a non-good Jew. A difference to the Jews in being a good Jew and being something else. To Christians, there's a difference in being a Christian, a good Christian, and being a non-Christian. There's a difference in being a real Muslim, at the ordinary level of regular people, regular Muslims. There is a difference. There's a real difference between being a Muslim and being an infidel. It is real in the 3D world. I'm telling you, you are far afield, you are fooling yourself, and I bring all this up not to pick on you, but to try to get you to see something. And you can use the religion you grew up in as your benchmark right now. If you cannot now, naturally, if you grew up Jewish, do, feel, think in the way that just your nervous system tells you right now, just non-verbally, you just have a picture of what it would be if there was such a thing as a real Jew. Or if in some way we could spiritually determine, right now, let's have a vote or some way, God pick out who's the world's most splendid Jew alive. And there he is, or she. Everything that he or she could do, feel, behave, if you cannot just automatically, if you can't do that now, something's wrong. You've missed the point. Same way if we use a Christian as an example. But you've got to be able to do it without believing in it. You've got to be able to do it because there is a reality to it. There is a useful reality to it. A life would not use it. But you've got to be able to do it. And if somebody said, boy, I've never seen anybody, this wouldn't happen, but somebody came up and said, I've been watching you, and I happen to be Jewish. And I didn't believe it, but you look to me that you must be the spirit of Moses. Or I'm a Christian, and I don't know what religion you are, but I've watched the way you live since I've lived here in this neighborhood with you the last few months. And surely, the living spirit of Jesus must be in you. You must be a real Christian. You can't even admit it. Not only is this not true, you can't even admit it. You don't have that to lean on. The fact is, no, I'm not. But you are far afield. You do not see a very important point if you do not see that you've got to be able to do everything that a good Jew or Christian or Buddhist or Muslim would do, and it's just no sweat. You've got to be able to do it, to feel it, to understand it, to experience it, and not have that mechanical background to lean on. You can't even admit, you can't claim to be one because you ain't one. If you is one, you ain't doing this. But still, you've got to be able to do, to feel, to experience. You've got to be able, based upon your background, as I said, it's immaterial, to do, experience, feel, think, everything that the world's greatest living Christian, Jew, Muslim, Hindu would do. You got to be able to do it while not being it. If you don't understand that, you got a long way to go before you understand something. While I am talking about talking, mention something else. How about a new acronym? Is this bright enough to see over here? Huh?
Yeah, no.
Minimal operating verbiage. Now, I'm not talking about anything mechanically already structured in your nervous system. I'm talking about now, and this seems to have, when I say seems to, it is real enough between people. But since this begins to have a up and down effect and touches some of you here and there, and some of you have felt like this was something that was a problem, and nobody's really ever had the correct words to ask me, so I'm going ahead and answer for some of you that I've seen a little problem written on your forehead. That as you begin to understand, as you begin to be able to free yourself from some of the mechanical restraints and from some of the weight of gravity of your own nervous system, you find that you may be talking less. It may seem to go on for a period of weeks, it may seem to go on for a period of months, and then you come out of it, it may just seem to go on for part of a day someday. It's just as though I got nothing really to say except anything I have to say. You're not mad, you're not pissed. There is nothing. There's no way to describe why. You just got nothing really to say. And then the person with whom you're living, and it could be somebody involved with this, it can seem to be a potential area of, hey, what's wrong? Now, I must suggest to you, and these, remember, we're tied still to 3D words, and I don't mean to describe to you something that seems to go in a straight line, and I'm not predicting how your future is going to be. Because anything I can describe to you is still only, at the best, 3/4 of reality. In most cases, only 2/3 reality. But I suggest that all of you will want to talk less and less, and you won't even know it. There is less and less to say. What the hell is there to say? If I didn't invent this, if I didn't make this up once a week, I'd have nothing to say. I couldn't come out here and wave a Bible, or the Torah, or the Koran. I got nothing to say. Nothing. Got no opinion, got no story to sell, got no program here I'm trying to push. Got nothing to say is why this is a benefit to some people, because the whole fucking thing is invented. It's made up from the beginning to the end of it. That's the only reason it has any potential value. It is not tied to the dumb weight of reality. It is not tied to the useless stolidity of that which is true. Much better for a few people. What I'm talking about is correct because I made it up and I can control it as I go along. I have up until now. I've never shown up under the influence of something, drugs, alcohol, evil spirits. I control it. I can look to its quality control as I go along. I can make up the right thing here, or at least the correct thing, as best I can judge the audience as a whole and sometimes individually. Make it up, dismantle it next week, dismantle part of it this week, later this evening. But you will find that there seems to be, somewhere along the line, this will come back to all of you, there seems to be a minimal operating verbiage. And you're going to find, comes and it goes, as I said. Don't worry, that's suddenly going to happen and you'll never talk again. But you're going to feel yourself drawn closer and closer to this reality, and you'll perhaps remember my little acronym. That it almost becomes distasteful. It almost makes you think that I might be wrong, that there is such thing as sin. Or there may be something worse than sin. And that would be distasteful, I guess. That I just, of course, here I go, I'm talking, and I'm running it already, but we've been through this, haven't we? But it's as though I just can't say anything other than what I've got to. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not trying to appear stoic. I'm not trying to appear intelligent. God knows that'd be nice, perhaps. But there's nothing to be said. You will know that your train is rolling, at least. People seriously and correctly involved with this. When you begin to have your own flashes of this, and you don't tell yourself, and you don't agree to it, because it's not either true or false, it's just correct. That really, what is there to say? What in the, to quote our good friend, what in the neon hell is there to say about anything that happened? And yet what is the majority, if you listen, a large part of, to give you the benefit of the what? Doubt. Of human conversation about, talking about things that have already happened. Either just a few minutes ago, last week, 2 years ago. What in the hell are you talking about? Well, what happened to me? Yes, I used to have a wart and it hurt me. Well, yes, I used to drink. Jesus. Yes, one time I drifted far from my church, from my religion. Let me tell you how it happened. If you're ordinary, there's nothing wrong with that. What is the purpose if you're trying to revolt? If you're trying to fly away from the gravity? If you're trying to simply have more fun than life normally allows people? If you would like to know before you die what the hell is going on here, which I've told you, I know at least one person on this planet at a time can. I know that for a fact. I can guarantee that. And I don't see any reason, I do not know any even four-dimensional law of physics that says that there can't be somebody else. But I do know for a fact that one person at a time can. And I do know that some other people, I know this, can come so damn close that it's just chopping up words almost into useless fractions to say how close they are to seeing it all. But beyond that, what is there to talk about? What is being accomplished? What energy is being passed? In what way are you fitting yourself? Of course, the closer you get to some amount of freedom from the gravitational pull of your own nervous system, the less I have to tell you this. You just know it. You just never had words for it. What is there to talk about? Why do I talk about anything that happened to me if it was 5 minutes ago? If it's something that seems connected to somebody that says, you know, I haven't been feeling good lately. You know, I haven't either. Well, let me tell you how I didn't feel good exactly. And they tell you, and you say, oh, let me tell you. Back when I was 7, I could have been 8. And you start telling. It's normal, there's nothing wrong with it. But what in the hell is it accomplishing for a few people? Can you imagine a real revolution that's out there owning nothing, believing in nothing, nothing to eat living out there in the damn wet bushes, nobody to hug him or her, nobody to pat him on the head. Even if they tried, you'd break their wrist. It's just all useless. And the revolutionary is going to sit out there and talk to himself about, ooh, he's overhearing conversation. Just there in the bushes, and then the people right in there, he can hear them in the city talking. He knows what's going on. And he's going to talk to himself about, ooh, I remember when I was like that. You call that running a revolution? You're just playing a game. You're just like a kid. You're a would-be revolutionist. You got a little hat. You got some kind of little cardboard sword. And you just run out in the woods every now and then, and you pretend that you're Long John Silver or John Lee Hooker. And you believe that you're out there, and you imagine that pirates are going to jump out of trees. You imagine that you're going to one day wait until the monarch walks by and go, you imagine it all. As long as you talk about it, you're imagining it. There is a reality to that, and some of you began to feel it. I could say that all of you began to feel it. All of you, it comes and goes, and I know some of you amongst yourselves you'll even have, since that seems to be mechanically a basis of sexual tension or doubt, a room for jealousy. Some of you that live together, one of you quits talking as much as you did for a while. And what's the first thing if you're operating at lion level consciousness? If your sexual partner suddenly seems to quit talking as much as they did last week, what's the first thing you imagine? Oh my God. If you feel non-verbally the reality of this, it just is. There's almost nothing to talk about except the necessary degree of what I used to refer to as factual information as opposed to social information. But other than the absolute necessities of you going in a grocery store and say, I've got to have some vitamin A, where are the oranges? And somebody points it out to do that. But then do not come back and say, oh God, I've needed some vitamin A, I've wanted some oranges so bad. Bring them back, and if they're not marked, say, how much are they? Beyond that, there is this feeling. It's not anything really to analyze, but I'll bring it out in case any of you want to have something to take as a nonverbal hobby. It's what I am talking about right now. It's what I'm saying to anybody, whether it be someone in this group, whether it be my mother, a stranger. Is this in any way, can I in any way construe this as being potentially useful? I am saying it, and when I say it, I listen to it, and it becomes real. I'm confessing. All mechanical talk, anything that you did not specifically say, that you just were not required to say for your own well-being, what you're doing is you're reinforcing your belief in a mirage. You're making a confession. You're giving an interview. The most influential thing that happens with ordinary consciousness, with the molecular structure of consciousness, is you say what it is that you are. You say what it is that you believe. You say what it is that you've done in the past. You say what it is that you will do in the future. You say what you're going to try to do. You say it and you listen to it, and it's real. You have confessed your sins. You have confessed that, yes, it's me. I am me. I am I. And as long as you believe that, you're done for. As long as you believe that, you're going to live in the city. You're a yokel. You're part of the populace. You're not a revolutionist. And all ideas of change are just misnamed forms of reform. And anybody can reform. Your old drunken Uncle Charlie can reform, but you haven't done anything. And some of you, periodically, some of you newer people in other cities even, may wonder why at times I seem to throw periodic fits about attending regularly. I'm here every week. Or being here on time, or people giving me some story about some little something in their life. Oh, it may have, at 3D level, be a big something. But it's meaningless. And anytime I seem to give it any particular credence, seem to have any concern about it, you can believe that that's just as invented, it's just as made up as this whole affair. I guess you could say that I am the big daddy of all mirages. So as long as you take it seriously, and I haven't decided yet to throw you out individually, I may stand there and take it apparently seriously also. But there's no good word for this. You are lying. You are strangling, you are stabbing, you are cutting yourself off continually at the ankles of your own nervous system. And unless you're talking specifically, unless you're doing it and you specifically meant to do it, that is, you invented it, then what you're saying is for your benefit. You are telling yourself, yes, it's me, and here's what I have just learned. Here's what I just saw. You're confessing. You're giving interviews. And you'll stay just what you are. You'll not ever find out the fun of this. You'll never find out what it is to be a real hermit. Not a fake hermit. Not the kind of guy that would join the American Federation of Hermits. A real hermit, you don't even see him. You never see him. Or if you saw him, you wouldn't see him. If you saw him, you wouldn't know he was a hermit. If you saw him and it was obvious he was a hermit, then he ain't a hermit. Which that's just as bad as a man saying, hey, did you folks know I'm a hermit? Man ain't a hermit. That's like saying, hey, I changed. If you say it, you haven't. A real hermit is a hermit. He doesn't belong to a club. He doesn't say he's a hermit. He doesn't deny he's a hermit. He'd never even say the word hermit. One final thing before I cut the tape and we go to something else tonight. Let me point out to you that probably the shittiest possible payment you could ever give back at any level to someone that apparently has given you love, affection, someone that even just attracted you lustfully. Let me point out to you that probably the shittiest possible payment you could ever give anybody that has ever done that for you and to you is to try and correct and reform them, to give them the benefit of your wisdom and to make them a better person. That in return for having made me horny all these years, in return for me having loved you sexually, or even as a friend, as a family member, it's because I love you that I want to tell you this. I cannot think of a shittier payment to ever offer to somebody. That yes, I've loved you, been attracted, been aroused by you, and therefore, could I tell you some of the things that you could really change and improve yourself? Shitty, I don't know a better word. I'm not just trying to be crude. It's just I do not know a better word than say that is probably the shittiest payment that you could offer somebody, is to attempt to correct them, instruct them, and reform them. I hadn't thought about it until just now, but if that has any inner office significance, that is, between you and your own self, I don't know, it might. Adios.
And Kyroots said, and from that tome of alleged ancient knowledge I mentioned previously, I bring you more excerpted UFNs, unidentified flying nevers. Never give a lift to a band of drunken owls or acrobats.
Never dye your nephew orange.
Never eat anything that might fill you up.
Never go fast enough to be slowed down.
Never answer the phone during wartime.
Never wait till your name's called. Wait till someone else's is.
Never discuss your weaknesses in front of people in uniforms.
Never pay to have your car neutered or your cousin towed away.
Never point and laugh at a military installation.
Never ring up the president while wearing plaid.
Never let a mirror see you cry. Never let a dog see you sweat. And never let a rubber tree see you coming.
Never watch television with both eyes.
Never call up a tax assessor in the middle of the night.
Never laugh at another man's religion, unless it is basically ridiculous.
Never come right out and call the Secretary of Transportation a fool to his face.
Never forget that you too once were.
Never say that you remember a song if you don't, unless you just want to.
Never believe in a God with a middle name.
Never study philosophy with a man named Fuzzy.
Never visit a country that has no mailing address.
Never bend your back while picking up pointers. Never move your lips while lifting heavy objects. Never lift heavy objects.
Never shout out for the return of the monarchy at a baseball game.
Never read a book just because it's there.
Never let a fry cook see you naked.
Never lend your car to gypsies or a loved one to the Argentine military.
Never stand back and watch your feet go up in smoke.
Never carry a card that identifies you as being a member.
Never tell a customs official that his children all smell funny.
Never jump off a tall person blindfolded.
Never turn on a fan while awaiting bad news.
Never call someone else's sex organs by a cute little nickname.
Never look out the window of someone else's car.
Never take money out of an account, except in cases where it's someone else's account.
Never attend a public gathering if more than one person will be there.
Never believe anything that was originally said or thought in a foreign language.
Never admit out loud that you would do anything for yourself unless you're alone.
Never take a parable at face value.
Never turn your social calendar over to someone you just met on a bus.
Never chase rainbows unless you're getting paid by the color or by the mile.
Never ask a nude person to put their clothes back on unless you're real tired.
Never stick out your tongue and make rude noises at a government building.
Never agree to donate your brain before you're dead.
Never admit you know the answer to anything.
Never seek a second opinion. Only a dope seeks a first one.
Never enroll in the Calamity of the Month Club.
Never give a cemetery as a reference.
Never write down anything worth forgetting.
Never take a back seat to anyone unless they're in the front seat and you're real tired.
Never donate to a church that meets in an abandoned roundhouse. Second level intensity. Never donate to a church that meets.
Never expect Rustaway to be the cure-all of all human ills.
Never believe the bell tolls for thee. There's bound to be someone else with the same name as you.
Never ask for seconds at a hanging.
Never trust a cake that's already cut.
Never bet on a race not to the swift.